Welcome back to the podcast. On this week's episode, Myah France interviews artist Sparrow Dineen about performing arts on campus.
Ryan Estes also talks to fashion major Elyse Rivera about the ASU FIDM program in downtown Phoenix.
I'm Audrey Lippert.
And I'm Trent Ashdown, and this is State Press Play.
Welcome back to State Press Play. I'm Myah France, and today I'm here with Sparrow. Would you like to introduce yourself, some of your projects that you'd like the people to know about?
Yeah, my name is Sparrow Dineen. I'm a graduate student here. This is my second year, and the program that I'm in is called Interdisciplinary Digital Media for Performance Theater. So I'm kind of half in the theater department here at Herberger, and then I'm half in the extended realities kind of technology division over in the Mix Center in Mesa.
All right, and have you seen a recent decline in interest for the performance arts or arts in general at ASU?
It is really, it's been a struggle to get people involved in things, I'll say that. There's a lot of cool programs going on, amazing events and things happening in the theater department and in the kind of performing arts schools that are not as well attended as they should be. And really what a lot of that feels like it comes down to is funding. Students can't be part of a lot of these things because a lot of these things don't pay them. It's kind of the entire performing arts runs on a lot of expectation of volunteering, and I think with the state of the world and funding for the arts disappearing so much, people just have to work. They can't afford to be part of these things even when they are here to do these things.
Why do you think this specific form of art, performance theater, is important for people to attend?
Specifically, theater has a long history of building empathy in people and the ability to kind of see and experience stories that are outside of your lived experience in a very visceral, real, living, breathing way. Theater has a lot of engagement with kind of the political and especially new works and the things that are being produced by my graduate cohort, by the other students who are making work and showing it right now. There's a lot of really interesting social critique and engagement, and it's just a great way for a lot of creative artists to express what they're going through and what the world is going through right now. And so I think theater is both an escape and also kind of an experience that can be illuminating, it can be educational, can help you understand a lot more about the world. And yeah, I wish it was something that was elevated a little bit more on campus.
When I had attended Erica's, the 6th session, it had a heavy topic on suicide, and when I read up on yours, there was a heavy topic, it said, on religion. Why do you think it's important for the arts to talk about such heavy topics like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think art is a way for us to engage with and kind of investigate things that can get a little tricky in society outside of that. Especially on a college campus, there's a lot in, it's in classes, professors aren't allowed to bring their personal biases or their real feelings into the classroom, and that's good. And a lot of the time it's important to just be focusing on learning the things that we're learning, and not bringing those kind of personal feelings or engagement with what's actually really happening right now in the world. We don't bring that into the classroom or onto campus a lot. And I think theater is a place where we get to express those things through art and really engage with and transform all of those things that kind of society is struggling with. I think art in general is one of the best ways to move culture, and one of the only ways that culture moves forward. We're not seeing that happen in political spheres and a lot of other places. I think art is a way for us to imagine the world as we wish it was, the world as it could be in the future, ways to engage with big, deep questions on our own terms.
What is something you would say to motivate people to attend any form of art, such as like performance art, to go and enlighten themselves through art museums? What is something you would say to enlighten them to maybe motivate them to get to that point of going?
I think art is not just entertaining. Like, there's a lot of things that, there's a lot of ways that we can be entertained in our modern society. Like, you can just open up your phone and get sucked into that for a really long time. But live art just has this different quality to it that I think is really inspiring as well. Seeing someone do something unusual, extraordinary, something that you've never seen before, can just open up possibilities and inspiration for you in your own life. I've certainly found that. I think every show, I try to make a point to go see all of the theater shows I can here and dance shows as well. I haven't been to as many music concerts, but just from what I've seen, like the level of artistry of people on this campus is so spectacular. And it's always just really inspiring and also heartening, like makes me feel like, oh, like there are these beautiful things in the world. There are people who are doing this kind of work. And just makes me feel more kind of invigorated and ready to do my own work after seeing stuff like that.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
One thing, if I have a little platform here, my thing that I'm focusing on in my degree, it is a theater program, but I'm also this kind of interdisciplinary mishmash. I also take a lot of classes in the game school, and my area of expertise is kind of in immersive theater and game experiences. So my show that just went up had a little bit of that. I'm working on some further pieces. If you have heard about Mixhibition, again, this is like, ASU doesn't do a great job of letting people know what's happening. So on April 29th, there's something called Mixhibition at the Mix Center out in Mesa, and that's a great event where students in all different classes are showing work in all of these amazing spaces. So there's like film production studios, there's like the immersive like projection, 360 projection screen room and stuff like that. I'm running a little like live action role-playing experience in that event. So definitely recommend that people come and try that out. And then anyone who is interested in pursuing like immersive theater, live action games. I come from like a D&D background in tabletop games and then went into live action from there, and I'm actually going to be teaching a class on it next semester. Oh. So if you heard this and you're interested, I'm teaching a class called Interactive Participatory Performance in the fall. And we're going to be making some cool art and doing a lot of maybe some kind of performances. This is my other, like with immersive theater, I'm like, I want to do things that are not just on a stage. If people don't come to the stage, maybe we can put theater in other places and just have it be something that like it expands out to different places on campus. So people who are interested in that, look me up.
That's very interesting. Thank you so much for your time.
From immersive performance pieces to high fashion, art takes many forms at ASU. What's your favorite, Trent?
I try and see as many ASU student films as I can. What about you?
Well, I suck at dancing, but my roommate's really good at it. Even though she's not a dance major, she still participates in a lot of the student-led shows here, so I love to see the showcase at the end of each semester.
Speaking of art at ASU, Ryan Estes sat down with Elyse Rivera to talk about the programs within ASU's fashion school.
Hi, I'm Ryan Estes with the State Press Play, and I'm here with Elyse Rivera, who is a fashion and design major. And your work is going to be featured in the showcase on the 18th coming up. Mm-hmm. And so how long have you been designing clothes?
I started in high school when I learned how to sew for a costume club. And then from there I started designing costumes. And then I think right after I graduated, I moved more into like the fashion design aspect, leaned more heavily into sustainability and wanting to design my own clothes from sustainable means.
And how would you describe your style or your fashion of the clothes you typically design?
It's definitely very similar to what I personally like to wear. It's the only way that I can describe it is alternative. There's definitely some remnants of like a 70s or 90s punk movement in it. There's a lot of plaid. I'm quite obsessed with plaid, but yeah.
And you mentioned sustainability was a part of what you do. Is there something that you do specifically to maintain sustainability, or do you just kind of think about it in every piece you make?
It's a little bit of both. The fashion industry is the second biggest polluter in the world next to carbon emissions, and most people aren't aware of that. I think that when I started my brand, I wanted to lean heavily into educating my peers, because I watch a lot of people who have similar styles to me find their clothing through fast fashion brands. But it's actually really easy to achieve, even though it doesn't really seem that way. I started at the beginning of my brand, I started with upcycling, so just taking clothing that I had in my closet that I hadn't been wearing, altering it to fit me, taking pieces from different items and then fusing them together. And then I kind of moved more into home goods, so I took a lot of sheets, bedding, tablecloths, any kind of fabric that I could find, and I would turn it into something completely different. And then since then, I've actually moved more into sourcing dead stock fabric, which is basically just fabric that brands will create for a collection that they're producing. And then once the collection is over, they have a bunch of excess fabric that they were meaning to use but never did. And most of the time, that fabric either goes to a landfill or it gets sold to a dead stock facility that will resell it for much cheaper.
And like you mentioned, there's a lot of overconsumption and pollution in the fashion industry. And I feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about wanting to get that number down, but a lot of people don't know how. Would you have any advice or tips for somebody who is looking to maintain more sustainable clothing?
It's a really convoluted question. You know, as a fashion major, we're required to take multiple courses on sustainability, and even without the course being focused on sustainability, we still have time to talk about it in basically every lecture that we have. So everyone is aware of the fact that the fashion industry is majorly polluting the earth, but depending on who you ask, anyone's going to have a different answer, because there really isn't one set answer. I think that recently there's been a movement of going thrifting, and as much as secondhand clothing is definitely more sustainable than buying brand new, it kind of cancels itself out when you're over consuming as a whole. So the only advice that I could really give as a consumer is to consume less, first of all. But also, I think that people don't really see the potential that they have already in their closets. If there's a specific silhouette that you're trying to achieve, YouTube is there for a reason. You can teach yourself how to make it out of something that you already have. I also think that if you're coming at it from a design standpoint, we should be focusing more on dead stock fabrics. I don't really like that there's an excess textile production. Yeah, it's a bunch of different things that we could really be doing. And also, if you have fabric that you're not using, whether that be clothing, tablecloths, napkins, all of these things that we just like needlessly throw in the trash can, those can be used for other things. I had a sweater that I really loved that completely fell apart, but I turned them into washcloths that I could use. I had these corduroy curtains from when I was a baby, and I just didn't want to get rid of them. They had sentimental value, so I turned them into pants. So there's a million things that you can do with a textile besides just throwing it in the trash can.
Is there anything that you've noticed in this upcoming generation of designers that you wish to see more of in the future?
I think that, at least amongst me and my peers, there's a conversation being had around what new can there be, because, you know, we fall into these aesthetics every couple decades. Like if you think of the 60s, there's a clear vision in your mind of what people were wearing. If you think of the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. But we've gotten into a period where social media, the internet is so widespread that you can really choose whatever you want. There are people who go out to the grocery store wearing bell-bottom pants that you would have grabbed straight from the 70s, or people going to the doctor's office wearing cottagecore. I wouldn't have even known what cottagecore was if the internet wasn't a thing. So I think a big conversation that I have with my fellow designers is, how can you come up with anything new if everything has already been done before? And I think that the most important answer that we've come to, or the conclusion that we've found within ourselves, is that it's not really about creating something new. It's about expressing emotion, a story. I think that a lot of the times fashion gets commercialized, and so you kind of lose the art behind it. But at the end of the day, fashion is an art. It can be a wearable art. So I think that whatever you're doing needs to be intentional, and you need to know what you're trying to tell the world with it.
And with this specific line that you're showcasing this weekend, what was the inspiration for those clothes?
So since I was really young, I've always been inspired by Vivienne Westwood, which is pretty obvious just by looking at me. But when I was like 13 or 14, I found an anime called Nana. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of it. But the anime creator, her name is Ayazawa, she takes a lot of inspiration from Vivienne Westwood. There are like regular Vivienne Westwood pieces that are shown in the show that actually exist in real life. And I would watch the show in that like coming of age period where you feel like really awkward with yourself and you don't know who you are. And I just found so much peace in it, because even as an adult, I feel like it's really easy to be angry about the state of our society, our country, our world, all of these things. That's why I'm influenced by the 70s and 90s punk movement, the 90s Riot Girl. I think that there are so many things to be angry about, and I don't necessarily consider myself an angry person, but I do appreciate being able to showcase that anger that I have in my art form, which is fashion design. So this collection that I will be showing on Saturday, on the 18th, it's based in a punk mentality. It's based in sustainability, because at its heart, punk is DIY. It's anti-consumerism. It is anti-conformity. And even more so than that, I wanted to tell a story of any feminine presenting person in our society, and how we are expected to uphold this level of perfection, this unrecognizable beauty standard. And the collection really does showcase a story from start to finish of a woman who is bound by the constraints of what society wants her to be, and slowly breaking out of that, being disgusting, dirty, destructive, and angry. So.
And for somebody who goes to this show on the 18th, what's something that you hope that they see from either your line or any of your peers?
I want the audience to see how vastly different every designer is at their heart. If you're a senior fashion major in the ASU FIDM program, that year that you're taking your capstone class, you're really just not focused on anything else. You really don't have a life outside of that capstone class. And I think it's really easy to get wrapped up in everything that you're doing, everything that you have in front of you. I feel like I really didn't pay too much attention to what my peers were doing until yesterday when we submitted all of our looks. And just seeing everything on the rack, it's so incredibly different. And I think that and not even just aesthetics. Like, yes, I have this dark alternative punk aesthetic, and someone else could be making like these extravagant gowns that you would see in the Met Gala, but even more so than that, as an art form, there's such a difference between something that someone would be wearing down the street on a casual Monday and something that you wouldn't see anyone wearing at all, because it is literally just a performance piece and nothing more than that. It's trying to tell a story. So I would want any audience member to be able to recognize that fact and appreciate both sides of the spectrum for what they are.
And that's all for this week's State Press Play. I'm Audrey Lippert.
And I'm Trent Ashdown. State Press Play is produced by our podcast editor, Audrey Lippert, and video podcast editor, Trent Ashdown. Our original music is by Ellie Willard and Jake LaRue.
Special thanks to our multimedia editors.
If you'd like to see more stories like this, check out statepress.com. See you next week.